to another webcast in the Iconics Transform Your Business webcast series. Today's webcast is Wearables and Hands-Free Devices, the Future of Remote Service. Before I turn things over to today's presenters, I want to go over a few housekeeping rules. My name's Amanda Gordon. I'm the Senior Marketing Programs Manager here at Iconics. Right now, on the call, you are in a listen-only mode. That means if you have any questions throughout the webcast, you'll want to type them into the GoToWebinar control panel. We will answer those at the end of the webcast. You may also email us at webcast@iconics.com for any questions that you'd like to have answered offline. And with that, let me introduce you now to our two presenters for today. Today we have Melissa Topp, the Senior Director of Global Marketing, who is in our Foxborough office, Iconics headquarters. We also have a special guest speaker today, Sanjay Jawar, who is the RealWear co-founder and president. I've included their contact info here as well. And with that, I will now turn things over to Melissa.
Thank you very much, Amanda, and thank you everyone for joining us here today. I wanted to go through a quick agenda, high level. First, I'll give a little intro to Iconics. Then I'll touch on the evolution of visualization technologies and where we've come in the 30 plus years that we've been in business here at Iconics. Then we'll get into those wearable devices and different form factors that are available for you today. And then I will switch things over to Sanjay, and he'll tell you all about the RealWear HT1 and all the related things you can do with that and with Iconics software. Then we'll get into a little demo, wrap up, and leave some time at the end for questions and answers, as Amanda mentioned. So before I jump into the core presentation, I'd like to just give that quick intro to Iconics. I do see a lot of familiar names on the attendee list, so this may be a bit of a review for you. But for those of you who are not familiar with us, or perhaps in need of an update on some of the many exciting things that Iconics has been doing, I'll keep it quick, I promise. Iconics is headquartered in Foxborough, Mass. in the USA and was established in 1986, so over 30 plus years in the industry. Recently, in August of 2019, Iconics became part of the worldwide family of Mitsubishi Electric, a longtime partner of ours, giving us some amazing opportunities at the global level to serve our existing customers and partners even better, as well as to open up new windows in partnering with the Mitsubishi Electric team. You will find Iconics in over 100 countries, represented either directly or through our valued partner ecosystem of distributors, OEMs, value-added resellers, and system integrators. I'm fortunate enough to have one such partner presenting with me today in RealWear, which you'll hear more about directly from Sanjay later. We also have over 375,000 applications installed worldwide, much in thanks to that global partner network. One partnership we're particularly proud of is the one we have with Microsoft. Our continued investments in their platform have allowed us to deliver cutting-edge solutions to our mutual customers and earned us the Microsoft Partner of the Year award 6 times now, hoping for maybe a 7th this summer. Our collaboration at the industry level allows Iconics to develop scalable applications based on a world-leading technology platform in critical applications for smart buildings, discrete manufacturing, process automation, and government infrastructure. In addition to being found all over the world, Iconics is also providing services to critical applications in many specific industries. With a flexible and adaptable platform, Iconics can be found running critical applications in automotive, oil and gas, water, wastewater, and transportation, just to call out a few. As you can see, the list of industries is extensive and has expanded a lot in the past few years, with tremendous opportunities as we continue to grow with our family at Mitsubishi Electric. So with that, I'll get into the evolution of visualization technologies. If we go back to the 1980s when Iconics was first founded, you had this icon-based SCADA, it was PC-based, 8-bit, and as you can see, rather rudimentary from a graphical standpoint. when we got into the 90s, we had Windows and went from 16 to 32-bit, and as you can see, the graphics got a little more realistic looking. And enter the 2000s, Iconics was proud to introduce the world's first 3D SCADA system, and was the first to also leverage the true power of 64-bit computing technology. That brings us to the 2010s and into 2020, actually, where we have cross-platform HTML5 run on any browser, any device, augmented and mixed reality visualization, and we also have the world's first holographic machine interface. So we've come a long way. And the way we visualize your data today is in a number of different forms, depending on the form factor. Our flagship product is GraphWorks 64, and that's our base 2D, 3D designer, primarily targeted for desktop, web, and some mobile devices. It's the most powerful and feature-rich, but you'll find that not all features work on all platforms. So then we have WatchHMI, which runs those GraphWorks displays in web browsers. And the thing about WatchHMI is there's no downloading of apps required, simple client side, and it visualizes a lot of those displays that you designed in GraphWorks. Mobile HMI product is intended for mobile apps such as Android's iOS devices and Microsoft Windows Universal Windows Platform devices. It's designed for mobile smartphones and tablets, and a simple download of the app from the store, connect to your server, and you're visualizing those displays in no time. And I'm going to focus in a little bit more depth today on something called WatchHMI, which I don't believe have heard too much about lately, but it's a native app for smartwatches, and it leverages our KPI Works dashboard, self-service dashboard for real-time and historical data, charts, and notifications. So like I mentioned, I'll get to that in just a little bit. The beauty of all those product names I just mentioned is you really don't need to know which is which. You configure once and deploy to any client type. And so that can include 2D, 3D, desktops, browsers, mobile, and now we're talking about AR, MR, and VR as well. And so independent from the device, you don't have to spend time developing those displays for each different form factor you might ever want to look at it on. Just configure it in the central workbench in GraphWorks 64 environment and deploy to any client as needed. And what that gives you is a very common user experience across devices, because we use responsive design technology to adjust the displays depending on what type of device it's being viewed on. So it runs on those phones and tablets, browsers, and wearables, and AR devices even, without you having to really think about how to change the design. So I mentioned the wearable devices. What are we talking about with those? Well, you probably know by now there's a wide range of options available out there today, even down to smart socks. I don't know if anybody's got a pair of those, but that sounds pretty cool. But today we're going to focus just on smart glasses and headsets for augmented and mixed reality, as well as smart watches intended for notifications and monitoring KPIs. And as you can see, those wearable devices can come in a variety of different form factors. But something that they all have in common, or usually have in common, that the traditional desktops and laptops and web browsers don't typically have, is location services. And you heard a bit about this last week if you joined our webcast. If you didn't, go check it out. It's a great session. But those location services include things like QR codes, GPS coordinates, NFC, optical character recognition, and the new Bluetooth Low Energy to determine where you are and automatically serve up an appropriate display for the assets that you are closest to. And I'll touch on that a little bit more when I talk about WatchHMI and how that works in just a bit. So WatchHMI, what is it exactly? It's based on our KPIWorks app. And so to get it, you download KPIWorks from the App Store, which if you have your watch paired with your phone, will automatically download the KPIWorks extension to your watch. You then open up the KPIWorks app on your phone, set up your connection to your server, log in, create a dashboard, and through the cloud, through the power of the platform there, it requests the data and visualizes it right on your wrist. And so once you have that dashboard up on your watch, some of the things you can do is scroll through different assets that are available for you to visualize, different displays, and those can optionally be sorted by your current location. So that goes back to the location services I mentioned. Once you select one of those, you can then use your swipe gestures to scroll through the different cards in the displays. And you can use the crown on the Apple Watch to drill into a chart or to invoke a cursor on a trend, drill down into, zoom into greater level of detail and really drill into the data in such a small amount of space. It's really amazing what you can do. The typical widget is laid out as such. You might have the value is prominently displayed, nice big text, so you get that right away when you glance at it. It's going to remind you what units it's reflected in. If there's an aggregate that it's calculating, whether it's an average, a sum, a count, whatever it may be, it's going to show you what that is. And it'll also show you the min and max values of that value. So you get a better feel for where you're at with respect to where you maybe should be. Then in the chart area itself, if you drill into that chart, you can see the description for what it's reflecting. And as I mentioned, you can use the device crown to drill into that chart and scroll through the different data points and columns or lines in time, whatever they may be. So the available widgets for you in WatchHMI, which through KPIWorks is a basic label. You also have donut charts, pie charts, column charts, bar charts, and a couple of different line charts, as you can see there. And so how is this configured? As I mentioned, it's based on our KPIWorks app, and it's all drag and drop, WYSIWYG, what you see is what you get, simple, fast, intuitive, and within KPIWorks, it shows you the available area for the watch display, so you see how it's going to look actually on the watch. And that can be, thanks to the power of KPIWorks, it can be configured literally from even your phone, tablets, web browsers, whatever you may be on at the time. So if you need to make adjustments, really easy to do on the fly. So I wanted to change gears just a little bit because we mentioned that these wearables are lending to some new ways of doing remote service. So I wanted to get into some of the use cases and applications we've been working with our customers on. These connected workers out there, some of the use cases involve predictive maintenance. That's a big one these days. Remote monitoring is always needed, always appreciated. Connected field services, and asset and equipment management. So these guys out in the field, guys and gals out in the field are serving many roles and expected to accomplish many tasks in just the course of a normal workday. And so the more we can help them be efficient and safe, the better your overall organization, maintenance, and efficiency will be. So what are some of the applications we've been working on here? As mentioned on the watch, you can get notifications. So we talk about alerts or AI-driven operational insights into your KPIs. Another big one is a remote expert video assistance that we'll review with you a bit today. If you want to get into that specifically, you can check out our session on CFS Works, Connected Field Service, that was presented about a month and a half ago or so. People are also looking for assistance with work instructions, workflows, and what to do when they're out on site to help them drive improvement, whether that be through predictive fault detection, artificial intelligence. Iconic Solutions for Remote Service can cover all of those application scenarios. So I mentioned CFS Works. I'm not going to go into detail on that. As I said, there's a separate webcast all about this, but basically it's an application that the connected workers can have on their phone, can collect and report mobile device health, deliver notifications, and allows you to, when you get these notifications about a particular service request, the connected worker can choose to accept, snooze, or pass on that task. So it'll go to the next available closest worker. Or they can also call an expert. And this is a really exciting new feature for us because the real-time expert interaction is really big in today's world because of it allows for contactless service. So worker out in the field needs some help, can call back to someone who's been there, done that, experienced veteran perhaps, and that person can walk them through exactly what to do, including annotating the screen and pointing out things, talking them through it on a video chat without having to be there in person. And you saw a demonstration of that last week from the iPad, from Vojta. Vojta did a great job showing that on the iPad, but we can also do this from the RealWear HT1. So very cool. I'm not going to belabor the RealWear here because Sanjay will do a much better job telling you about it than I ever would. But suffice to say that remote expert app can work on those devices just the same. And so what would that experience look like? It's a little hard to demonstrate it to you on a live webcast, but the RealWear device, for those of you who haven't seen this before, it's a tiny, not tiny, it's a little eyepiece that sits right in your field of vision, and essentially it's like a 7-inch tablet display. And so it looks small on the screen here, but what you're seeing, what your brain is processing is more something like this size. And so that remote expert can be invoked by just using voice control, say call expert, and it'll call out to that person, wait for them to join. In the meantime, you're also seeing the video feed of what you're showing that expert. And then once they join up, they can start immediately talking you through the issue. From the expert's point of view, it's a simple web application. And so they might see the call come in. They might just get it as a notification down in the bottom right corner of their screen. Or if they're already in the expert application, they can get it right within there. Once they accept that call, there's a number of different things the expert can do to interact with the remote worker out in the field. And so things like mute, hang up, hide the video, typical video chat functionality, but also annotate the screen as you see here, a number of different features available. They can even add text, draw arrows, and send it across back to the worker so that they know exactly, cut this wire, not this wire, other critical decisions like that. So that's a summary of Iconic Solutions for remote service. And again, those do run on just about any device out there. We say any glass. and proud to say they deliver real-time results in the order of minutes, not months. With that, I'm going to turn things over to Sanjay and let him tell you more about the RealWear in depth. Sanjay?
Thank you, Melissa, and glad to be with you today, and thanks for the opportunity to present together with Iconics. So I'm going to switch over to my slides. All right, so I'd like to tell you a little bit about RealWear and the HMT1 and the use cases of IoT visualization with the mobile HMI application from Iconics. Also, we'll cover a little bit of some customer case studies, and we'll talk a bit about the current effect of COVID-19 on our industry and the imperative around remote field service and remote operations when your field service technicians can't travel to the customer site. So RealWear was founded in 2016, a little over 4 years ago. We think of ourselves as in the business of knowledge transfer from experts to new employees, from vendors to customers, and we're really focused on the first line worker. Our flagship product is the HMT1, available in 2 versions, the HMT1 and the HMT1Z1 or 1Z1, which is intrinsically safe. And these are head-mounted wearable devices that are targeted for first-line workers in safety-critical situations who often are wearing hard hats or other protective equipment and who need to be hands-free. And they're really focused on improved productivity and safety for those types of employees and workers. So what I'm now going to do is share a video. This little animation gives you a flavor of what the device looks like. It's a head-mounted device, not a pair of glasses. Contains a screen on this movable boom arm, which can easily move out of the way, and a camera that lets you transmit live video or take photos. It can be worn on the right eye or the left eye. It's a fully rugged device, so it'll stand up to harsh use indoors and outdoors. It's waterproof and dustproof, drop-proof. Being used, in fact, for over 2 years in the field by various customers, and with an under 1% field failure rate. So really reliable and robust, all-day battery life. When you look at the screen, it appears to be a 7-inch tablet to you. You look at it with one eye, the dominant eye, and that gives you an unobstructed view of the rest of the world, which is very important for situational awareness, and typically you keep it slightly below your eye, and I'll show you myself wearing it in a second when I do the demo. So based on Android 8.1 at the current time, and with a 100% hands-free user interface based primarily on voice recognition that will work even in very loud environments and in up to 13 different languages. And so this is the only head-mounted system which is 100% hands-free and doesn't require the use of gestures or controllers or tethered devices to operate. And so when you think of this device, think of it as the synthesis of a tablet and smart glasses. It's as powerful as a tablet in terms of its capabilities, an Android tablet, but compared to the smart glass style, you have a lot more capability, a lot more battery life processing, camera, ruggedization, more safety aware. And as a result, you kind of get the best of both worlds. The HMT1Z1 is a intrinsically safe version of this, the only one that is able to operate in ATEX Zone 1 as well as Zone 2 and in FM C1D1 or CSA C1D1 locations. So if you're in the industry that requires intrinsically safe, which is typically oil and gas, chemical, pharmaceutical, some other industries, you'll know that only certified devices can go into these zones. This is the only head-mounted device certified for intrinsically safe at this level in over 60 countries. So now a little analogy for you. The difference between assisted reality and mixed reality, or for that matter, virtual reality. So by analogy, let's imagine that you're learning to fly a commercial airplane. So if you get trained as a pilot, before the airline is going to let you go in a real Boeing 777 or similar, you're going to spend many hours in the flight simulator. And that flight simulator is completely immersive, accurately duplicates the experience of being in a real plane, lets you execute all kinds of scenarios and not hurt yourself or the plane. And this is really the ideal training environment, fully immersive. By analogy, this is our virtual reality. In fact, flight simulation could be argued to be the original virtual reality. And it has its analogy in modern day virtual reality and aspects of mixed reality. And it's really good for training because all of your attention is on the virtual digital world and none of your view is available to the real world. And even in a mixed reality scenario, the effort to make it as immersive as possible diminishes the experience of the real world. Now on the right, when you really come to fly a plane, you don't want all that stuff taking up 100% of your field of view. You know how to fly a plane now. What you need to do is get task-specific information for the airplane parameters. Maybe it's attitude, maybe it's heading, maybe it's altitude, maybe communications with the air traffic control tower. And it's very important for you to maintain situational awareness so that you can see, any hazards, birds, other airplanes, etc. And so you want the real world to be primary and the digital world to be assisting you with glanceable task-specific information, such as the screens that you see there in the cockpit. And this is assisted reality for the industrial worker by analogy. It's very important to stay present in the real world and not have your brain so focused on digital elements that you fail to see dangerous hazards around you. And so let's talk a little bit about safety. Most industries have some trade-off that they make between productivity. In fact, different industries may sit in a different place in that trade-off. Industries highly safety conscious and where that is the most important thing, such as nuclear power, are going to make a trade-off that optimizes their safety processes, procedures, and tools, perhaps at the expense of some productivity that they might be able to achieve. Other industries may have some safety considerations, but they're really more about optimizing productivity and will make a different trade-off. And some may sit in the middle, such as oil and gas in this graph. And so when we talk about virtual, mixed, and augmented and assisted reality, you can make different trade-offs too. And I think mixed reality, which some of us have heard about, very much stays on this same curve. Certainly can improve your productivity, certainly can provide a benefit, but it stays on that curve and there is some safety trade-off, and I'll explain why. On the other hand, this technique that we call assisted reality really lets you increase productivity and increase safety at the same time, jumps to a higher curve. This is really the focus that we have at RealWear for our users. And so there are a number of things that one could do in a head-mounted device that would either enhance safety or reduce safety. Chief among them is the user interface. We focus on 100% hands-free, which uses voice recognition and a very small amount of head motion, does not use gestures, controllers, touchpads, buttons. And that's important if you have to wear protective equipment or operate equipment, not drop things, be able to hold on, perhaps if you're on a scaffold or on a wind turbine or on a cell phone tower. And so the use of the hands is extremely important. The view of the world through these glasses or with these head-mounted devices, as we've explained, the idea that enhances safety is to keep the real world primary and not be distracted by a beautiful hologram through darkened glass that diminishes your attention on the forklift truck approaching you from the left, or the crane hook swinging at you from the right, or the colleague behind you that's shouting at you to get out of the way. Situational awareness, very important. Peripheral vision, very important for safety, to be able to see those hazards around you. And by restricting the display to a minority of your field of view, you maintain your focus and situational awareness on the real world and still have access to that 7-inch tablet-like display below your line of sight, not blocking your direct field of view. Further, we feel it's important not to have snag hazards or tangle hazards, particularly if in an area with machinery, rotating machinery, things that you could catch on, and having something that's connected from your head to a phone or another device on your belt adds a hazard. Eye strain is very important too. A lot of the mixed reality systems require you to use both eyes to get the stereo effect, and that comes with something that we call the divergence accommodation conflict. It's the conflicting depth cues that your brain has to process to understand how far away something is. Two of those are vergence, whether your eyes are parallel or converging. That's a clue for your brain as to how far away something is. The other one is accommodation, which is whether the lens in your eye is focused near or focused far. You can feel that. If those two cues are in opposition, then you get eye strain. And after an hour or two, you really want to take it off. And that is the case with most of the mixed reality systems. If you only have one eye, then that problem never occurs. One eye, or a display on one eye, then that problem never occurs, even for people that have two eyes. And then protective equipment is super important. And in many of the industries that we work with, many of the industries that you represent, you don't have a choice as to whether or not you're allowed to wear a particular type of hard hat or hearing protection or safety boots or gloves or face shields. They're required, and if you can't meet those standards, then the equipment just can't be used. And there's a wide variety of those types of equipment. In our experience working with thousands of customers now, we've almost never had the case where customers are willing to change the model of hard hat or the type of hearing protection they use to accommodate a head-mounted device. It's just like fighting City Hall. Nobody wants to go there. You just have to make it work. And existing protective equipment compatibility is key. And finally, comfort. If something is uncomfortable, then it may not be in use, and that in itself may detract from the availability of expertise or safe procedures and detract from safety. So our HMT1 device is wearable in a wide variety of different head mount options and different types of PPE, from bump caps and hard hats to climbing hats. We also have the work band at the bottom for people who don't wear hard hats. We have silicone straps called the flex band for clean room and pharmaceutical environments which don't shed fibers. And there's a number of different accessories you can also attach either on Bluetooth or Wi-Fi or through the audio jack, including barcode scanners and hearing protection. And so very much a platform for head-mounted usage. Now I'd like to switch gears a little bit and talk about the current environment that we're all in, where many of us are working from home, not able to visit these plants and facilities where the process equipment is working, or not able to bring all the collaborators we might need. And so we have a number of challenges and a number of responses to those challenges. And what I'd like to talk about is these three themes of connectivity, continuity, and culture as a framework for how we respond to the current environment and then thrive in what may be the new normal for quite some time. Let's start with connectivity. When we talk about connectivity, we really mean restoring the connectivity that has been broken by the COVID virus. And there are a number of ways that we could think about that. One is the connectivity of connecting vendors to the factory or plant. How do I get people in to help commission equipment, repair equipment, install equipment, retire equipment, upgrade equipment, service equipment? If the vendors can't visit, then the factory may not run. How do we connect field service to the customer? If you're used to getting a regular service call on some piece of capital equipment and now that vendor either can't travel or your policy is that they may not come to your facility, then we have to do field service in a different way. We have to do it remotely. We have to do it with video. We have to do it with wearable devices. How do we train our newer employees? How do we connect the master to the apprentice and coach somebody to do a task that they hadn't done before that may be complex and do it right first time? And we saw some of the remote video capability that Melissa went through, where you can actually draw on the field of view and coach. And in fact, one master can coach many apprentices at the same time through remote mentor, as we call it, and video collaboration software that is optimized for that purpose. And how do we connect teams to operations? How do we get multiple people to collaborate on solving a technical problem from around the world, where maybe only one of them can be at the facility and everyone else has to be at home? And so all of these connectivity challenges can be helped considerably by wearable devices with hands-free operations. Now let's talk about continuity. And continuity is about keeping our business going. And so we perhaps are moving from an idea that we'd like to have a little bit of extra productivity for our workforce to can we keep our operations running at all? We have a number of customers who have realized that it's key to their operations to be able to resolve disruptions remotely, and if they can't do so, then production may stop. And so it goes from a productivity improvement to a business continuity proposition. We also want to minimize staff's exposure to infection, practice social distancing, or even better, practice not having many people in a facility at all except for the absolute minimum. And so if those experts don't have to be there and can be there remotely, then the risk that they get infected and that further causes a business continuity issue can be minimized. We want to proactively manage supplier risks. So if we're not sure that some of our supply chain is going to be able to deliver production on time, or are they having their own issues in their factory or in their logistics or in their quality, then how do we go inspect the supplier's facility? Maybe in the past we would have sent somebody there to do an audit, but now we could do it remotely by having an HMT1 in the facility at the customer. How do we digitally deliver field service, digitally deliver training, digitally deliver the kinds of things that we might have had to go on site for before, and those kinds of operations and maintenance, inspection, and analytics services? And can we do those things remotely? And can we do this all securely? Because if we introduce IT security risks at the time of doing this, then that itself can be a threat to our business continuity. And so all of these challenges we feel can be addressed and are being addressed by leading companies using wearable devices. Lastly, in this section, I'd like to talk about culture. And so the culture is changing. We've all become very good at being remote, and almost everybody is working remote, probably will be for some time. And so perhaps many of us knew how to jump on a Skype call in the past, but now we've become power users of these collaboration tools. We've learned to use the various capabilities beyond a basic call and share analytics information and share team planning information and do stand-ups and take meeting notes and collaborate in multiple ways. And this culture transformation is going to be very powerful, not only now, but in the future. It'll allow us to proactively manage the risks before they occur remotely and using these collaboration tools. And it will allow us to actually build resilience into our operations for the future, because we don't know if there'll be a second wave of the virus and a second wave of lockdowns. But now is the time to build that capacity and resilience into our operations to be ready, so that if it gets worse before it gets better, then we can continue to operate our businesses and build resilience into our people to know how to respond in these situations. And all of this, by the way, reduces cost. And not having people travel, not having reducing the amount of time before someone can actually service a piece of equipment, this actually helps in our businesses too. And the new culture is that our employees are thinking first how to do things remotely at save cost before they consider what used to be the normal case, which is to travel. All of this will give us new opportunities from accelerated digital transformation. Satya Nadella, CEO of Microsoft, said about a month ago that Microsoft has seen 2 years of digital transformation in 2 months, and we would echo and validate those observations from our customers. We've also seen about 2 years of digital transformation in the last 2 months, just tremendous acceleration in the use of these tools from industries all around the world. Connectivity, continuity, and culture combine to change the value proposition here from knowledge transfer, where we started, which was all about getting the knowledge from the experienced people who are perhaps approaching retirement into the new workforce and doing it with productivity and quality. We're moving towards business continuity. Can we keep our operations running? Can we keep our field service operations going? And we will eventually transition to business recovery, where we're very focused on rapidly dealing with the backlog of service jobs and production that has accumulated, and using these new tools to create new digital opportunities for our businesses. So this is an acceleration of digital transformation. Now, specifically for COVID-19, there are some unique things going on. One is medical manufacturing. We're seeing enormous manufacturing capacity ramps for N95 masks, for ventilators, for face shields, for hand sanitizer, a variety of other needs for the healthcare system. In many cases, we've got companies that don't usually make these things building ventilators or masks. So Spirit Aero Services, which makes airframes for Boeing, is making ventilators with a company called Viair, and Ford and GM are building ventilators with other companies. And you have L'Oreal converting cosmetics plants into hand sanitizer production facilities. So how do you rapidly ramp in a facility that wasn't used to making these types of products, with a workforce that's never done it before, do it at an accelerated, very large scale in a very short time frame, and do it right first time? Wearable devices can indeed help with the training, remote work instructions, remote collaboration necessary to do that. And our devices are used in all of those situations that I just mentioned. Critical infrastructure. How do we now go and service the equipment when we have to maintain social distancing and have a fewer number of people there? Again, we can use remote collaboration to facilitate the inspection and maintenance with social distancing and protective equipment going on across all industries. The healthcare system itself has capacity demands on screening people coming into facilities for thermal, for temperature, and determining if they may have a fever and need more accurate medical grade screening. But a device like ours with a thermal camera attachment can be used to screen people quickly. If you're going to invite people back to your factory and you decide you're going to screen them before they come in, how do you rapidly deploy that capacity? How do we institute our policies to say, you know, if you may be at risk, then don't come in? And how do we help doctors actually assess patients without themselves being exposed, and keeping the minimum number of people exposed to virus situations, and doing assessments on patients remotely? And we're about to see a huge ramp in pharmaceutical manufacturing for antibody treatments, vaccines, antiviral drugs. Some companies are talking about having 2 billion doses within 12 months, or 1 billion doses within 6 months. Imagine the complexity of the manufacturing ramp at that type of scale. And this is a very high precision, regulated manufacturing, which needs a high degree of expertise to put into place. These wearable tools are going to be used in those situations too, and we have customers building manufacturing capacity with the assistance of wearable devices right now in these categories. And so think about detect, respond, collaborate. Detect the issues, respond to those challenges remotely, and collaborate with the experts and teams needed to ensure that you have a rapid response and business continuity. Okay, so now I'd like to switch over to a demo, and we're going to show the RealWear HT1 in action. And I'm going to try and share the screen of my device here. And I'm also going to, hopefully you might be able to see me on the webcam still. And here I am wearing the HT1 using a hard hat. I've got it on one eye. It's a one-eye device, but I can see over it quite easily. I'm looking directly at the camera, and you may be able to see that I can easily make eye contact. And if I glance down, what I see in front of me is something about this big. It looks to me like a 7-inch tablet. And what I'm seeing is what you're now seeing on the screen. And so what we're seeing here is a digital twin of an air conditioning fan in an air conditioning system in a building. And it's controlled by a VFD, a variable frequency drive made by Delta. There's a little picture of it on the left there. And this variable frequency drive sends speed commands to the fan, or it drives the fan motor, and we can send speed commands to the variable frequency drive through IoT. This is built on Azure IoT, a backnet gateway, a Dell computer acting as the gateway with a card in it, hooked up, of course, to Iconix software in the cloud and visualized using Iconix mobile HMI. So what we're looking at here is mobile HMI for the HMT1, and what we're going to see is hands-free visualization and voice control that would allow the technician to go service this VFD and do so with the IoT information at hand and the ability to do it hands-free. So a number of things I can do here. First thing is look at some more data. Next page. And the voice command just took us directly to a panel of data here where we see some of the parameters. Next page. And here's one more page, and we can see the frequency command that's being sent is for 5 Hertz, and the motor speed currently is at 449 RPM. And in fact, there's data that we can look at here, show trends, and can actually, not much has happened over the night. Looks like it went up earlier this morning when I set the speed to medium, preparation for this, this demo. Hide trends. And so now let's change our frequency. Set frequency medium. So now it's actually sending a command back through the gateway, which is going to instruct that VFD to send a 30 Hertz command to the motor. And within a little while here, we'll see the motor speed change. It's about a 2-minute polling interval, so we could get lucky and it could change quickly. Oh, we got lucky. So the motor speed's already going up, and we can see that the speed has changed. If we now go back to our show trends and show 15 minutes, change the time axis here, and now we can see that that motor speed has gone up. Now let's hide trends, and we'll just make it even faster. Set frequency high, and this will push the frequency above its limit value, and we'll eventually get an alarm when it goes above 1200 RPM, and that would trigger a work order in this particular demo in Microsoft Dynamics. I'm not going to show that in the interest of time. That would allow a technician to come and look at it. So there's our alarm. We're above 1200 RPM. Next page. On our digital twin, we can see that data in a simplified fashion. It's not coming through this GoToMeeting, but for me, that fan is the graphic is spinning a lot faster as well. And so I can easily visually see that. Show trends. All right, there we see our speed has increased. We're in an alarm situation now. Hide trends. Hide trends. So at this point, I may need to go do something about it. Show manual. Okay, well, here's the user guide for the VFD, and I'm looking at it just by moving my head. Let's go to page 7. This is the control panel in the manual. It's a little hard to see, so let me zoom in. Zoom level 2. Okay, that's better. And you really need to look at that panel more closely. Zoom level 3. Zoom level 3. Freeze window. Okay, now I don't, when I move my head, nothing changes, and I can easily kind of look at that panel. And if I want to kind of read the description, zoom level 2, control window, I can easily kind of read this and find the instruction that I need. Okay, understood what I have to do. Navigate back, navigate back. And so I can now go and change this. Now, if I get stuck, I could use the find expert command here, and that would trigger a video call using the Iconix remote video field service that Melissa highlighted earlier. And so that'll give you, that's the connection there. And again, over this video webinar would be difficult to show you, so we won't do that today. Okay, so that gives you an idea of mobile HMI on the HMT1 with hands-free voice control. And so just to conclude, let's talk about a few different case studies quickly, and then we'll open up for questions. This is Cronus. It's the largest manufacturer of bottling equipment for polyester bottles for beverages, soda, and beer cans. They're doing their field service using HMT1s. They have about 200 devices in service, premium service offering where they actually charge the customer more for remote service over video, but it lowers their cost at the same time. So a great business case for Cronus. They've started allowing customers to use their own HMT1s as an alternative to their service technician showing up with one during COVID. The next example here is Talgas. This is the third largest gas provider in Europe, the largest, of course, in Italy. They have over 100 of the intrinsically safe versions of the HMT1, the HMT1Z1 in service, allowing them to remotely service and maintain the gas distribution infrastructure and plant across Italy, which is coming out of lockdown now. This deployment is about to triple in size based on the business continuity that it offered during the phase of the lockdown that just occurred in Italy and how reliant they were on it during that time. And so now we're going to see this get a lot bigger in the next 3 to 4 months. This is a short video that I think we may actually not have time to play it, but let me just talk about it. And what I'll just do is show you a couple of freeze frames. But this is Texmark Chemicals, the refinery of the future. This is Doug Smith, the CEO. This gentleman is Carlos. His job is to audit rail cars that take refined petroleum products from the refinery and distribute them by rail. Sorry. And Carlos has to climb up a gantry like this in order to get to the top of a rail car, in order to take some measurements, some pressure readings, some chemical compositions readings, validate that valves are closed, take pictures, and complete an audit inspection before that rail car can leave. And he can do that 89% faster. Here he is carrying an intrinsically safe camera he doesn't have to do anymore. And instead, he can use our device to do it all in one and complete these audits 89% faster. So that's a little case study there. All right, I think we're almost at the end of the time. Perhaps we just have 4 or 5 minutes left for some questions. I'd like to hand it back to Amanda to structure the questions for us. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that informative presentation. Let me switch to my screen here and show you my conclusion slides. Okay, and now I'd like to talk to you about the Iconics Worldwide Customer Summit Transform 360. We recently rescheduled this in-person event to May 4th through 7th, 2021 at Foxwoods Resort and Casino in Connecticut. If you already signed up for the event and you'd signed up for the previous dates, we've just moved your registration already to the new dates, so no action needed on your part. If you haven't already signed up, I encourage you to do so. This event is going to be bigger and better in 2021. We have a number of exciting guest speakers lined up as well as compelling demos to show you. If you register by April 19th, you can do so at iconics.com/transform360. We have a number of promotions that we put up on our social media pages from time to time, including complimentary registration promo codes. So I encourage you to follow us on social so you can see those and sign up. I really hope to see you all there at this live in-person event. I'd also like to share with you a number of on-demand webcast recordings that we have available at iconics.com/webcast. If you've enjoyed today's webcast, you can see the other topics that we have covered this year. And not only do we have these North American webcasts, but we also have a number of international versions as well. And while I'm taking questions today, I'll leave this slide up here where you can see our presenters' contact info, as well as our solution sales specialists who are available for you to call with additional questions that you may have. And with that, I'll start taking some questions here. So first question is for Melissa. Melissa, what kind of smartwatches does WatchHMI support?
Good question. I forgot to mention that. So we currently support Apple Watch Series 2 and higher, and are planning to add support for the Samsung Gear in the near future.
All right, thank you, Melissa. Sanjay, this question for you. How does an enterprise manage the devices?
Yeah, good question. So it's an Android device and it can be managed using enterprise mobility management platforms such as Microsoft Intune or AirWatch, VMware's UEMM platform. and Mobile Iron and SOTI and many of these types of device management platforms. And we've worked with these companies to implement Android Enterprise Management APIs, which means that you can enroll them into those consoles and deploy applications and set Wi-Fi policies and send encryption keys from those platforms. We also have our own turnkey system called RealWear Foresight. It's our own cloud. Probably the very easiest way to manage RealWear devices. And some companies use those. Allows us to update our own software components as well. So you can do either one.
Okay, thank you. And one more for you, Sanjay. Someone else had this question. Has RealWear considered using a SIM card-based device as an option?
Yeah, great question. So this is a Wi-Fi device, and it connects typically to a network over Wi-Fi. It doesn't have a SIM card capability built in. It doesn't have a cellular radio. Yes, we have considered it. There are a number of practical issues in the current generation of devices relating to power consumption. But one thing that you can do is attach a USB LTE dongle, and we make a little hard hat clip that will let you clip the USB modem, LTE modem on, and then it will attach with a short USB cable to the USB port in our device. It can be powered by our internal battery, and that gives you a reasonably self-contained solution. Certainly you could use a portable hotspot as well, such as a jetpack or other similar, portable hotspot that broadcasts Wi-Fi. And we have customers that do those things too.
Actually, this question is for you, Sanjay.
Yep.
Does the voice recognition really work in loud environments and with accents?
Yeah, it does. So believe it or not, and it's hard to believe unless you really try it, but it'll work at 100 decibels of ambient noise. The English language recognition is very robust over different accents. It's in use all over the world. We've got lots of users in Australia and India, in parts of Asia, of course, in Europe with different accents. And then there are 13 other languages, European and Asian languages, supported as well. And the noise cancellation that is built into the system is really the best in class, combined with this command-based speech recognition system that's only really listening for specific commands at any given time, and that allows it to be very, very noise robust and just pick out those commands from a lot of noise. Something we've worked very hard on. It's taken years of engineering, and you kind of have to see it to believe it, but it really does work.
Okay, thank you. And Sanjay, I apologize, but all the questions are mostly for you. A lot of people interested in what you've shown today. Next question, what type of speech recognition are you using, and what type of wireless communication?
The wireless communication is predominantly Bluetooth and Wi-Fi. As mentioned, we can connect to LTE over a hotspot, or by tethering it to your phone, or by plugging in a USB dongle to it. The speech recognition, I mean, the underlying technology provider is from Nuance, but there's a lot of integration, tuning, and engineering that combines the visual user interface, the speech recognition, the microphones, the noise cancellation, and all of those aspects, and third-party applications such as mobile HMI. All of those things have to be engineered together. But the underlying technology provider of the voice recognition is the world leader in voice recognition, Nuance.
Okay, another one, Sanjay. What about cybersecurity with the device?
Right, so it's an Android tablet. It just doesn't have a touchscreen. It's secured in much the same way that you would secure an Android tablet. So you can lock it down so that only approved applications can be installed by the enterprise. You can lock down the USB ports. You can turn off the Bluetooth if you want to. You can, through enterprise mobility management policies, ensure that it can only connect to approved Wi-Fi networks with approved encryption. You can support 802.1x Wi-Fi encryption. All the things that you would do with your, modern Android-based tablet or phone, all those same security practices work. But because there is no Google Play Store, because it's not really a consumer device and it has to run hands-free specific apps, it isn't really open to the same risk vector. Because it's not a personal device, employees aren't installing their own apps on it and bringing security risks into the enterprise. So it's very much a corporate managed, device that's not a personal device, and it can be locked down there is no user interface for the end user to install their own apps. It's all provisioned remotely by the administrator, seamlessly for the user and under a great deal of enterprise control. And then we offer security patches every quarter. So every quarter there's a new firmware update which implements the security patches from the previous quarter. We've been doing that for a couple of years now, and so we have a commitment to the ongoing security maintenance of these systems, both on the cloud and on the device itself.
Okay, and because of the time here, just going to ask one last question. There were some questions I didn't get to, but we'll answer those offline. So Sanjay, last question for you before we wrap up. Are there any safe word configurations to start to recognize voices and to stop it?
No, it's listening all the time. You never have to say Alexa, Cortana, OK, Google, or any of those things. It's only listening for specific commands at any time. When I was doing the demo, only the commands that were on the screen were active at that time. And so you say what you see. And the trick is pause for half a second before saying the command, and say the command distinctly, pause for half a second after saying the command. So if I want to go to the home screen, the command is navigate home, but if I say navigate home in the middle of a sentence like this, it won't trigger. But if I say navigate home and then continue, it'll work. And so there's no wake up word, and it makes it very immediate for people to use it and very easy to use.
Okay,
There's
thank
a
you.
question here about price that I see in there as well, and I just wanted to list price for the HMT1 with the 3-year warranty is $2,500 device, $2,500 US dollars, $2,000 with a 2-year warranty. Large customers do get discounts. The intrinsically safe product is roughly double that, little over 2x that. But talk to us if you're interested, and you know, we can certainly work on pricing.
Okay, perfect. Thanks for sharing that. And again, several questions that we didn't get to. Sanjay, I'll be following up with you offline to get some answers to those questions and connect you with those who we didn't get to today. With that, I'd like to thank everybody for joining us today on another webcast. Please register for more today at iconics.com. And we also want to let you know that any other upcoming webcasts, be sure to follow us on social media so you can stay up to date and register for those upcoming events as well. And with that, hope to see you all on a future webcast. Thank you, Sanjay and Melissa, for the presentation today.
Thank you all.